Welcome to the first episode of my Honors Activism Project. So, today we're going to be talking about specifically the men's rights movement, men's rights activists, what they mean, what they are, what that's all about. Specifically, we're going to go into, firstly, misconceptions, because I understand, the minute you hear that, some people go, oh my god, what's wrong with you? Do you hate women? Are you misogynist? What's going on? No. That's got nothing to do with it. That's not true. So that'll be clarified. Then we'll go into explaining what men's rights really is, and then maybe answering some of your questions as to why we're not feminists, which you will understand later why that question is relevant, and as well as why we're not feminists, why issues need to be taken care of, and how to take care of them. So, let us begin. So, firstly, we'll begin with misconceptions. Misconceptions about the men's rights movement. So, first and foremost, as I said, beginning with this, that we hate women, that we're misogynists, harassers, we believe it's right to rape women. That's a complete lie. The men's rights movement is not an anti-woman movement. It is not hating of women. If anything, it's actually quite supportive of women. It's just the difference is this movement is not, focused on women's rights. It's focused on men's rights and men's issues, more specifically. So there's no hate in women. There are women MRAs out there, women men's rights activists. MRA short for men's rights activists. So it's definitely not closed off to women. Another misconception is that, on top of there not being women, that there's no people of other races outside of white people, and there's no young people in the movement. Well, the young people portion is starting to get debunked on its own because they're starting to notice younger men's rights activists, but the fact that people believe there's no other color than white people is a huge misconception, and it's very not true. Men's issues affect all men. There are different men's issues for different races. There are men's rights activists of every color. It just happens to be the case that people tend to usually be more talkative about the white men's rights activists. Yet another misconception. There are quite a bit of misconceptions when it comes to the men's rights movement. Another misconception would be that men's rights itself is just wanting domination and masculinity and trying to force women to submit, which is not true at all. Of which I will now go into that. We've gone over misconceptions. This leads straight into what men's rights is. Straight up gonna say it. Men's rights, men's issues, is about what exactly the title is. It's about the rights and issues of men that they go through. Some examples, other than obviously the obvious ones, which is double-edged sword stereotypes, issues with alimony, family court issues, which father's rights movement is technically a men's rights movement as well, and it's becoming more popular, which is fantastic. Men's health issues, mental health issues, issues with crime, false accusations, huge. I know some people are going to be like, yeah, but feminists, that there are tons of people that say there's only 2% of false accusations. Yeah, well, that statistic is quite false. There's way more than 2%. And on top of that, they're only counting a very, very small amount of false accusations out of, many. So, the idea is that men's rights is a movement towards equality, but with the focus on advocacy for men's issues and for men's rights. The rights portion comes in the fact that we literally have laws nowadays that make it easier for people to accuse men, to send them to jail. In some countries, there are even laws that are written to exclude men out of them Good example, in India, they excluded men outside of the rape laws. So in a way, since they excluded them from the rape law, that, you can't rape somebody, basically it's practically legal to rape men in India, which is terrible. I understand some people are going to be like, that's an exaggeration, but it's true. So that is what men's rights, men's issues is. The rights portion comes from the fact that there are laws and there is a judicial system, and you should have rights to equal fair court and rights to lawyers and a fair system. Personal experience here. In my own case, I have friends who have gone through kangaroo courts. And for those of you who don't know what kangaroo courts are, basically they're sort of like side courts that are run, specifically in the case of my friends, by schools, and it's not a traditional judicial system, and they're really, really cool. You practically don't even have a right to a lawyer. Most times you honestly don't, at all. In a kangaroo court to defend you, you basically just get prosecuted right away, and it's really terrible. And so that's how I came to know about this movement, is through the fact that I had so many friends go through high school getting falsely accused, given infractions for no reasons, because the administrators were too lazy to even try and look into the case. They went, oh, we'll give you infraction, it means nothing, or they got sent to juvie because of some false accusation, or, they went through kangaroo courts. It's awful what happens. And that's just my personal experience. But men's rights and men's issues has nothing to do with wanting to dominate or make women submit. They want to be as equal as the feminism movement, to many, want to be equal. We're fighting for equal rights. It's just we're fighting it from, if you want to say it, the opposite point of view. This now leads into, why aren't you feminists then? Well, as explained earlier, we're fighting for men's rights, men's advocacy. And yes, I know so many of you are going to say, but feminism is basically equal rights. If you look up the dictionary definition of feminism, it literally says advocacy for women through equal rights. We are basically doing the same thing, but through men's rights. That's what makes us different. They're advocating for women's rights, which is completely fine, and you should totally do that, That is fantastic. Women do have rights, they deserve their rights, but so do men. You need to be equal on both sides for equality. You can't have one side be more privileged than the other, and no matter how much you want to tell me, oh, men are privileged in this way and that way and this way and that way, there is so much that happens to them that women will not go through as much, or sometimes not at all. Kangaroo courts, it's highly less likely for a woman to go through. I almost only saw men go through kangaroo courts in high school. Not saying that there aren't women who went through that they need to be addressed. These laws we're coming out with about sexual assault, about rape, about consent, we need these to be inclusive of everyone. And currently they aren't. Title IX under Betty DeVos was fantastic. It really was fully equal. And now we are going back and we are practically taking away the right to due process from men. And this hatred, this misconceptions all around about the movement, about everything, does not help us reach that equal point. So that's why we can't be feminists, because feminism is the advocacy for women's issues. And although we are not against women's issues, we do agree with them. We're advocating for men's issues because that is the main focus of the men's rights movement. I would say, to go into final points, now that I've explained the misconceptions, what men's rights is, why we aren't feminists, that to fix this issue with men's rights, first of all, everyone needs to work together. And we need to stop spreading misconceptions. We need to stop doing this hate all men, hate all women for both sides. We need to stop teaching this sort of gendered war that we've been teaching without people noticing it. But it's instilled, you see it in the rules and the way people act because of the rules of the schools and what they're taught about men versus women. We need to stop doing that in society. We need to speak out for both sides. And we also need to be more open-minded. We need to listen more to each other. And to be frankly honest, we should come up with more definite definitions on certain terms. Because as this video is being created, most of you probably didn't know what men's rights and men's issues were, or you had thwarted ideas of it, or wrong definitions, and it's the same with feminism. All in the fact that for a while we would say radical feminists, and it would be referring to the people out there who are saying, oh, kill all men. Why isn't COVID killing the men fast enough? And in the American definition, that would be true because in the American definition, radical basically means crazy and absurd. But from another personal experience, someone was telling me that if you take radical and you go to the root of it, which means radicales, it means the root itself, the root of the problem. So we need to start communicating better. We need to make these definitions more clear so people have a better understanding and there aren't so many misconceptions. And overall, we just need to learn more about both genders and how to cooperate. Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. This has been episode 1 of my Honors Activism Project. Can't wait to see you for episode 2. Bye!